Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is my second episode from the series about top 10 flowers to grow indoors. In this episode I will tell you all you need to know about orchids for a beginner. Orchids are beautiful delicate flowers that come in an array of colors, shapes, and sizes. There are over 30,000 species of orchids and at least 200,000 hybrids. The care requirements may vary based on the type. However, you can follow some simple guidelines, regardless of what kind of orchid you have, to keep it healthy and looking great. Light. As a general rule, orchids are light-hungry plants. For best results, they should get 12 to 14 hours of light each day, year-round. In a tropical environment, the duration and intensity of natural light does not vary as it does in temperate climates. For this reason, you may need to move your orchids around and supplement with artificial light to keep them happy during the winter months. South and east facing windows are usually the best spot for orchids. West windows can be too hot, and northern ones are usually too dark. If you don't have a good window location for your orchids, they will be perfectly happy growing under artificial lights. Orchids should be positioned no more than 6 to 8 inches away from a set of 4-foot fluorescent bulbs. Growing media. Terrestrial orchids, such as Paphiopedilums and some Cymbidiums, grow in soil. But most tropical orchids are epiphytes, which means that they grow in the air, rather than in soil. Their fleshy roots are covered with a layer of white cells called velamen, which acts as a sponge to absorb water. The coating also protects the roots from heat and moisture loss. An orchid growing medium must provide good air circulation and permit water to drain very quickly. It must also give the roots something secure to cling to. Depending on the type of orchid, they can be happy growing in peat moss, fir bark, dried fern roots, sphagnum moss, rock wool, perlite, cork nuggets, stones, coconut fiber, lava rock, or a blend that combines several of these materials. As a general rule, fir bark nuggets are the most popular growing medium. Watering. Most orchids can tolerate drought far better than they can tolerate excess moisture. Nothing kills an orchid faster than letting it sit in a waterlogged pot. Without adequate air circulation, the plant will suffocate and die. As a very general rule, orchids should be watered once a week. The growing medium should be allowed to dry out between waterings, and excess water should not come in contact with the roots or the growing medium. After being repotted, most orchids will not resume active growth for several months. Water very sparingly during this readjustment period. Humidity. Most tropical orchids prefer humidity levels of 60 to 80%, with the wintertime humidity level in most homes hovering closer to 30%. Orchid growers often use a humidifier or set their orchids in special humidity trays or gravel-filled trays. Some orchids also benefit from being misted. Fertilizer. Orchid growing mediums provide very few nutrients, so orchids must be fertilized to sustain healthy growth. Use a liquid fertilizer and dilute it more than you would for other plants. Fertilizer should only be applied when plants are in active growth. This means that most orchids should not be fertilized in midwinter or right after they have been repotted. Many growers use a 30-10-10 fertilizer, though others prefer 10-10-10 or 10-10-30. Misting your orchids with fish emulsion or seaweed extracts will provide micronutrients. Potting and repotting. Orchids are usually happiest in a relatively small pot. Plastic pots are preferred because when it's time to repot, the roots can be more easily detached, or the pots can simply be cut apart. To ensure good drainage, you can fill the bottom inch or two of the pot with foam peanuts. Suspend the orchid over the pot and gradually fill the pot with fir bark chunks or whatever other growing medium you are using. The crown of the plant should be just a bit below the top of the pot. Sometimes it's helpful to use a bit of wire to secure the plant until its roots get established. Some orchids should be repotted every year. Others may be happy in the same pot for 7 or more years. As a general rule, don't repot your orchid unless necessary. Orchids resent being disturbed. Repot if the growing medium has started to break down enough to reduce aeration, if the roots are creeping out well beyond the pot, or if new growth has unbalanced the plant. Propagation. Propagating orchids from seed is quite difficult. Unlike the seeds of other plants, orchid seeds do not contain nutritional storage tissues. To grow, the seed must land where it will find a particular kind of fungi that can penetrate its root system and convert nutrients into a usable form. To overcome the odds, an orchid seed capsule typically disperses millions of microscopic seeds, which can be carried hundreds of miles from the mother plant. To propagate orchids from seed, you must work in sterile conditions. The seeds must be grown in a gelatinous substance that contains nutrients and growth hormones. You must also be very patient. It takes months for the first leaves to develop, and, even then, they will only be visible with a magnifying glass. Roots appear even later. It will be at least 3, and possibly as many as 8 years, before you see a bloom. It is far easier to propagate orchids by division. But remember that dividing a plant means forsaking blooms for at least a year. Also, the larger the orchid plant, the more flowers it will produce. Small divisions take many years to mature. Orchids resent repotting, and usually will not flower for at least a year after they have been disturbed. If possible, purchase your orchids in pots rather than bare root.